Good evening, everyone. Man, I had a few uh, technical difficulties getting my stream started, and I realized that I had some settings wrong. So anyway, welcome tonight's live stream, where I'm going to be talking about trust tonight. Now, uh, when I was thinking about what to talk about this week, I had a lot of different topics. Some of you have sent in like things that you wanted to know about. I know I could probably teach on communication and conflict resolution for a whole year. But when I was talking to a colleague, they said that they were struggling with trust. So I said, what area of trust are you struggling with? And they said every area in every way, right? Trusting myself, trusting my spouse, trusting God. So I decided to talk about trust because as I began to think about it, I realized that trust is very crucial to our emotional health, right? If you can't trust, then you can't feel safe. And if you can't feel safe, then your amygdala, which is your alarm system in your brain that warns you of danger, it'll become unreliable. This then makes you vulnerable to anxiety and perpetual survival mode. Now, the danger in living in survival mode when you're actually not in danger is that you cannot fully be present. Right? Instead, you're constantly looking for the threat that the alarm system has told you is there. Now, this will affect your rest. This will affect your work, your recreation. It'll even affect your sex life. Okay? A lack of trust hinders your ability for deep connection. And if we can't connect deeply, then we cannot be our best selves. When children are born, if their core need for trust is not met, they will develop issues like not being able to trust the world. Or you have people who just, it's like they don't trust anyone off the bat. Like it's just not there. Or they may develop an issue with not being able to trust anyone but themselves. Now that is probably the biggest problem when you can't trust anyone but yourself. The reason that this is the biggest problem is because number one, if you can only trust you, then how do you engage in healthy relationships? And then number two, because you're limited and finite, you're not wise enough to run your own life. You can only operate from a place of limited knowledge, right? You only know what you know. But not only do you only know what you don't know a lot of times what you don't know. So you being the supreme being of your own life is going to cause you anxiety. Why? Because you're wise enough to know that you don't know what you're doing. You cannot run your own life. Okay. Now, when I say run your life all on your own, I'm not talking about other people or depending on other people. I'm talking specifically about your inability to trust anyone, especially God, right? So you may think that you trust God, but in essence, you don't, because you don't trust anyone outside of you. And when a situation comes up and you have to trust God, you'll find out that you don't trust him like you thought. So then you have all these questions, and that's going to cause you problems. So needless to say, trust is important. Now, what I'm talking about tonight, I won't be long, right? Because I've prepared like a really short presentation for you. Because again, there's so many different areas of trust that we can talk about. Okay, but I want to give this to you tonight. So now, as a matter of fact, just so trust is a lot like conflict resolution and the topic of communication. It has a whole lot of branches, right? A bunch of different ways we can talk. Like my colleague said, we could talk about trusting myself. How do I learn to trust the decisions that I make for my life? How do I learn to trust I'm going in the right way? Or how do I learn to trust God? Can I trust God? I have a book called Trusting God, and he answers these two questions. Can I trust God? Meaning, do I have the ability to trust him? And then, is he trustworthy? And then my spouse, how do I trust them? Or a lot of times it's how do I rebuild trust? Because you had to have a level of trust in order to even get together. But when something happens, how do I rebuild the trust? And so, because I can't talk about everything at one time, I decided to break it up in sections. So tonight I want to focus on trust within a marriage or significant relationship. All right, that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So here's how Webster defines trust. The dictionary says it is the firm belief in the reliability, truth, or strength of someone or something. Okay, the firm belief in the reliability, truth, or strength of someone or something. Now, the reason I call this webinar, I didn't see that coming, is because a lot of times in our intimate relationships, we don't see the torpedo headed our way for our relationship until it hits us. And then when it does hit us, it causes major damage. So here's the thing about trust. Trust is lost, and don't forget this, trust is lost in buckets, but it is earned in drops. That's important to know. It's important to know so that you don't, number one, so you don't play with the trust. And number two, so that you take it seriously, which I guess is the same thing as not playing with it, right? But trust is earned in drops, but it is lost in buckets. Okay. We may not have 100% trust in each other, but that's not the goal anyway, right? Having 100% trust in your spouse, I mean, I don't know how you're going to get to that place if they're human, right? However, the trust that we do have can be lost in a single moment, and then it can take months or years to rebuild. Once trust has been broken, it has to be earned back. Right? It has to be earned back. The problem that I see often in my office is that when trust is broken, the offender or the trust breaker wants their partner to get over it quickly. Right? They don't seem to understand that they're rushing their partner to trust again is going to work against them and not for them. Why is that? Because building trust takes time. Building trust, it's lost in buckets, but it's earned in drops, right? So it's going to take some time. So, for what I prepared, the bulk of what I prepared, let's use a scenario. Now, I'm not going to give you a specific scenario of distrust. Okay, you can fill in whatever you want, and it'll probably fit. So here's how I will so let's say that there's been a breach of trust, all right? And I want to give you both sides, okay? What the trust breaker must do and what the hurt partner must do, okay? So first, let me talk about the trust breaker. In order to rebuild trust, you must, I cannot emphasize must enough, you must take responsibility for what you've done. You must take responsibility for what you've done. And you need to express your remorse or regret for breaking the trust, right? You can't act as if it was a small thing. This is probably the first step to recovery and rebuilding trust, right? If you hurt me, if you break my trust, you can't then act like it was no big deal. You can't act like, well, man, that wasn't that. You need to go and get over that quick, because I can assure you, chances are that regaining my trust is going to be slim to none. Okay, you cannot hurt and not care, or you can't hurt me and not show me that you don't. You can't hurt me and show me that you don't care, right? So you may care. That's important. You may care, but the hurt person needs to see it. Like I can't see your heart, right? Your partner can't see your heart. Your partner doesn't know what's going on inside of you. So they need to see outward signs of your regret and your remorse. You need to take responsibility for what you've done. Now, once you've taken full responsibility for what you've done, there are 5 core characteristics that I thought of that the hurt partner needs to see these in you. If you're the offending partner, these 5 characteristics your hurt partner needs to see. Okay. Now, the first one is reliability. Your partner needs to be able to rely on you, even in the smallest of things. Right? Don't make promises that you can't keep, and don't say things that you do not plan to uphold. Be a man or woman of your word. Don't just say frivolous things without thinking about it, not realizing, because sometimes it can be innocent, not realizing that down the road you actually won't be able to keep that. That's going to work against you. So that means you got to be mindful. You got to think about what you're saying, what you're doing, because you need to present an image of reliability. Now, when I say present an image of reliability, because I know some folk like to play on words, I'm not talking about faking. So let me change it and just say you need to be reliable. Okay, is that better? You need to be reliable. If you say you'll be home at 6, then you need to be home at 6. And this is when trust is broken, right? No, we're not children. But the reality is, if your marriage or relationship is important and it's on the rocks, you have to do what it takes to get it back if you want to keep it. Now, if you don't want to keep it, then, most of this won't be relevant for you anyway. Well, then I shouldn't say that, because you'll probably do relationships again. At some point, hopefully, your partner's pain will then be relevant to you, right? So, but anyway, if you say you're going to be home at 6, be home at 6, right? If you say you're going to clean the garage out this Saturday, then doggone it, clean the garage out this Saturday. That's what you need to do, right? Don't say things you don't mean. Here's the next characteristic: consistency. You must be consistent. Now, maybe you have a history of not being consistent, but you'd better change that really quick if rebuilding trust is your goal. Okay. And this can go into the reliability. You give your word, so I'm gonna be home at 6. So one day you're home at 6, 2 days you're home at 6, or even all week until Friday. That's not consistency. And the consistency, because so things are shaky, like the relationship is, and I'm talking about big trust breakers, right? I'll talk about the small ones at the end, but big trust breakers, when big trust is broken, your relationship is rocky, like the foundation of it is shaken, and you need to be consistent. Your partner needs to see consistency in you to help them feel safe and to restore their faith in you, that they can trust you with their heart. Now, the third characteristic is honesty. Now, this probably goes without saying, right? But you would be surprised at how many people are dishonest after they have broken their partner's trust. That is one of the craziest things to me, right? You broke the trust, but you're still being dishonest. Like, it's a perpetual pain that you're creating. Now, let me say this too. Along with honesty is transparency or vulnerability, right? You need to let them see you. You need to let them in. You need to not have walls up. You having walls up will not make them feel safe, right? Now, depending on the nature of the offense, you may give up some of your privacy, right? But what's more important to you, your privacy or your marriage? And no one can make that decision for you. You got to decide. But which one is more important, your privacy or your marriage, right? If you broke the trust, you have to restore the trust. You need to be transparent, right? And I've talked about the difference between transparency and honesty. You need both of them. And those two different characteristics, by the way, transparency and vulnerability is the fourth one. But Honesty is being honest or being truthful when you're asked something. Transparency is volunteering truth without being asked. For example, let's say my wife, she said, "Baby, have you talked to your ex?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I talked to her like 2 weeks ago. She called about blah blah blah." That's honest, but that's probably still going to end up in a not so good situation. Why? Because in that situation, transparency was needed. So here's what transparency looks like. I come home, "Babe, guess who called me today? Out the blue. Da 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 da." That's transparency. She didn't ask, I just volunteered. And when trust has been broken, you need to volunteer information that your partner would want. Now, you don't know everything. You're not God. There's some things you don't know. So I would say err on the side of sharing too much than too little. All right. And then here's the fifth characteristic. When you are the trust breaker and you're trying to rebuild trust, authenticity. You need to be authentic, right? You need to make sure that your repair efforts are authentic. But you also need to make sure that you yourself are being authentic in your everyday interaction with your partner. Your partner will be able to determine and tell when you're being fake, right? And this will hurt the rebuilding process. Don't be fake, right? Be authentic. Now, for the hurt partner, you are also responsible for rebuilding trust in the relationship, right? You're not the one that broke the trust, but it's your marriage or your relationship also, okay? So there is a part that you play. Now, your part may not be as heavy or as weighty as the offender, but there's a part that you play. You don't just sit on the sidelines and, I need you to prove to me that you're worth my trust. I'm not going to do anything. As a matter of fact, I'm checking out of the relationship. You need to prove to me that you deserve my trust. I can tell you that ain't going to work. Even if it did work in the sense of them doing that and them agreeing to do that, it's going to weaken your relationship. So ultimately, it will not work. Okay? So there's a part that you got to do. So what do you got to do? You have to learn to trust again, because you may not know how to do that, right? Once your trust has been broken, once you've been injured that way, it's like, what? You got to learn it, whether that's going to therapy, getting a book. And of course, I'm a vie for going to therapy, but you got to learn how to trust again. Why? Because a relationship or marriage without trust is like a car with 4 flats. You can be in it, but you're not going anywhere. Okay? You have to be open to trusting again. That's important, right? You have to be open to trusting again. Now, you don't have to rush back to the place of feeling safe, right? You don't try to rush through the healing process, but also be careful to not intentionally hinder the healing process, right? You have to take your heart. You got to take I say it like this. You got to take your heart to God and check it into his supernatural hospital, right? Now, depending on the severity of your injury, your whole world could be upside down. If your whole world is upside down, that means he's the only one, he being God, is the only one that could turn it right side up. So what does that mean to put your heart in God's hospital? Well, first, ask God to search your heart. That's the first thing. Ask him to search your heart to see if there's anything in there that will delay your healing. Why? Because not being healed hurts. And if there's something in there that's hidden that you can't see, he can see it. So ask him to point it out. He's your creator. He knows all about you. So take it to God. And, David says, search me, O Lord, right? If there's anything in me that's going to hinder me, anything in my heart that's going to hinder this healing process, Lord, point it out so that I can deal with it. Why? Not so I can let them off the hook. We ain't even about that, right? Well, forgiveness is a part of the whole healing process, right? But I'm just talking about your marriage in general. If you want to stay in the marriage or relationship, then you have to participate in the trust building process. Okay. Now, things. So I was talking about delaying your healing. Don't. And so you've given your heart to God, and you're asking Him to examine it, so that you can find out if there's anything in there that is not like Him, or anything that would hinder that process, right? Things like the tendency to compare someone else, or compare your partner to someone else. That's dangerous. That's very dangerous. Okay. Or the tendency to shut down or not welcome your partner's attempts to repair. Okay. You want to check your heart for those kind of things, because it's going to be hard enough for your partner to rebuild trust. You don't want to make it worse. Again, this is only applicable if you want to stay in the relationship, or if you want to stay in the marriage. If you don't, then we still. It's my opinion. You still got to be respectful, because it's still a human being, right? We don't hurt people because we're hurt. I know you may have learned that when you were a kid, but that doesn't work for healthy adulthood. You don't hurt people because you've been hurt. Okay, so be mindful of that. Now, your main focus, not only focus, but your main focus has to be your emotional health. It has to be your emotional health, right? You have to make sure that you do not have unresolved hurts of your own, from your own past, that could be hindering you in the rebuilding of the trust in your marriage. Now, here's another thing. Let your partner comfort you. The fact that they are the one that hurts you is the reason that they need to be the one to comfort you. You have to resist. You have to resist the urge to control them. Now, when I say control, people get, they start getting the heebie-jeebies, because I'm not a controller, so I ain't got to worry about that part. No. Don't check out, because when I say control, oftentimes we're not intentionally trying to control them like puppets, but we try to we are controlling them with our attitude or whatever. Here's the thing: love cannot thrive where there is not liberty. Love cannot, it's impossible, cannot and will not thrive when there is not liberty. They must have the freedom to choose to love you, to respect you, to consider you, to be there for you. They got to choose that on their own. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't ask for your needs of connection and accountability to be met, but you can't control them with your attitude or your rules or your demands. You can't do that. Okay. Now, this is for everybody. So in your relationship, you must protect the trust. Trust is foundational to love. And when there's a pattern, let me say this. When there's a pattern of broken trust in the relationship will start to feel like it's wasting away. And then when this happens, you two will tend to stop actively caring for each other. Right? Your relationship, it kind of like just fades before your eyes. Okay? And so let me say this then to the ones who have not had, like, you have a good marriage, you have a good relationship, but you haven't had those major injuries like an affair or whatever. Your goal then is to constantly and consistently build trust. Right? John Gottman says that trust is built in the smallest of moments. He calls them sliding door moments. Right? Now, a sliding door moment is when there's an opportunity to connect, and if you do not walk through the sliding door, he says that it's actually like a betrayal. Now, John Gottman has done years of research on couples. So I kind of tend to believe what he says. He says, if you see the opportunity to connect and you don't take it, you actually build betrayal as opposed to trust. Now, let me give you an example of a sliding door moment and how these little small moments of connection or these small opportunities can either build connection or incite or inject betrayal. All right. So let's say I'm looking out the window one day at a bird, and I say, that bird is feasting on all them grasshoppers. Like he gonna be too fat. He eating up all the grasshoppers. And then my wife, who is sitting on the couch playing Candy Crush, she doesn't even look up. She doesn't acknowledge what I said or anything. That's a sliding door moment that she missed. Now, it's so small. My feelings may or may not be hurt, but a lot of times feelings aren't even hurt, right? It may be like just a tiny twinge where you feel slightly ignored, where it's not anything big, right? But as small as that is, they build up over time. And then as they build up over time, they can begin to erode your relationship because little by little, distrust is growing. Trust, my friends, is an anchor in your relationship. You must protect it at all costs. Think about that. Trust is an anchor. An anchor keeps you from drifting to unwanted places. Okay, trust keeps you from drifting from. That reminds me. Reminds me of a story. There was a man, a New York businessman, decided he wanted to avoid a $20 service charge by replacing the bulb in a 7-foot fluorescent light fixture himself. So now he managed to smuggle a new light bulb tube, into his office. But then he faced the problem of how to dispose of the old tube. So he recalled that there was a construction site near the subway in Brooklyn that had a huge waste receptacle. So he decided he was going to put the tube in there. So after work that evening, the man got on the subway, holding the white tube vertically, with one end resting on the ground. As the train began to get crowded, other passengers took hold of the tube, assuming it was a handrail. By the time the man reached his stop, he had devised a new plan. He simply removed his hand, leaving the other passengers to continue to hold the tube as he got off the subway. Now, if the train had come to a sudden stop, then those passengers would have learned that their anchor was not secure. My friends, you don't want to get to a tough spot in your relationship and realize that your anchor was not secure. And so then let me close with this, particularly for my married folk. Because marriage is God's idea, so trust is an anchor, but the biggest portion of your trust has to be in Him. Why? Because He's infallible, right? He's perfect. He knows everything, and He loves you like no one else can, and He has plans for your life and marriage. Trusting God with what you can't see, that's just wisdom, right? Why trust yourself when you can't see around the corner? Trust the one who knows the past, present, and the future, right? So, that's what I have for you guys tonight. I hope it was helpful for you. I hope that it was impactful for you. I hope you were able to glean some nuggets from it, and just want to help you do love and life better. All right. If the trust has been broken, be diligent about restoring it. And if you have not had a major trust break, make sure that you are consistently and constantly building trust in your relationship. Okay. Now, if anyone has any questions, I'll take a few questions for a little bit, and then I'm gonna get out of here. So just let me know if you guys have any questions. let's see. Um, I typically don't type on my own thing, but I am today just to make sure this is working. Let's see. Any questions? I have something that I'm preparing for you on Monday. Let me make a little announcement. So on Monday, I'm planning to launch a new. I don't even know what it's called. Something. Let me just tell you what I'm gonna do. So on Mondays, I'm going to be doing what I call 5-minute Mondays. So every Monday morning, my goal is to give you 5 minutes of wisdom about life or relationships or what really that's all we got. Life and relationships. What else is there other than that? So 5-minute Mondays. And so the first one's going to be this Monday. And now, for those of you who are not on Facebook, you may not see the 5-minute Monday live because I'm going live on Facebook. However, I will post those on YouTube. So if you have subscribed to the YouTube channel, you'll still get to see it. You just won't see it live, right? So that's going to be my 5-minute Mondays. But anyway, so thank you guys for joining. I appreciate you allowing me to speak into your life, and I hope to see you next time. I believe I'm going to continue with trust because there's some other things about trust I want to talk about, and I really want to talk about trusting God. And I know everybody doesn't want to. I can't say I don't know everybody doesn't want to, but just in case you don't want to hear about trusting God, then I'm giving you a heads up. That may be what I'm talking about next week because I believe it is crucial to a healthy, happy life and a sustainable, happy life. Yeah, I believe that. They say happy wife, happy life. I believe my wife is happy. However, what's more true is trusting God, happy life. Okay, maybe not a happy life, but joyful. How about that? All right. You guys enjoy your weekend. And one more thing. For those of you who are on here right now, yeah, let me not say that. So I'll just end it. All right. You guys have a good one, and I will talk to you next week.